días, sean muy bienvenidas, bienvenidos a esta charla, esta conferencia internacional. Tenemos la suerte, la fortuna de poder contar con la presencia del profesor Kazimierz Butelski de la Universidad Técnica de Cracovia, quien va a presentar la charla cuyo nombre está aquí en la pantalla, Temas de Conservación y Protección del Patrimonio en Polonia, con casos de anfiteatros contemporáneos en dos lugares, en dos ciudades distintas. Solamente reitero, agradecer mucho su presencia, a quienes nos siguen por la transmisión en streaming. También comentarles que la visita del profesor Butelski se enmarca en un convenio de colaboración entre la Facultad y la Universidad Técnica de Cracovia, y en el marco de un proyecto también de cooperación internacional que se ha desarrollado entre 2019 y 2021 y vincula a las dos universidades y también a académicos del Líbano. Así que, sin más, y agradeciendo una vez más su presencia, dejo con ustedes al profesor Butelski.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry that I can't speak Spanish, but I try to say something in English about Poland and about the Polish architecture and about what we do in one part of this movement, what is now in Poland in the contemporary architecture. I'm here, how you see, follow first of all agreement with the University of Chile, and then we receive a grant which was financing by the Polish National Agency for Academic Exchange. And finally, this grant has to be finished 1 year ago, but follow the COVID and all these things comparing to the COVID, it was extended until the end of December, and for this reason, I will come as far as Chile was open. It means if it was possible to enter Chile. As you know, it's not easy. Maybe you didn't know, but it's not easy to enter. We have to wait with Professor Podhalański 1 week in Peru. And finally, I received some documents, but Professor Podhalański cannot receive. And for this reason, today you got only one lecture, because yesterday Professor Podhalański from Peru, from Lima, come back directly to Poland. But I think that this is not the end, this is the start, and I'm happy that we can meet together in this hard time. Also in Poland we got a lot of problems, and now a big number of people who was ill follow the reason of the COVID. It's a differences in the climate, and now you coming to the summers and we are coming to the winter, and for this reason we got a very high level of the numbers of people who was ill. But I think that during the next year we have to extend our cooperation. Coming back to the lecture depends on some modern intervention into the existing structure based on two design. And first of all, I would like to show a small film. Okay, this film shows us one of the Odeon, and in my lecture, the Odeon is the term which I used for amphitheater which was covered by the roof. And before I show you two designs, I would like to show you some research which I done and also published. This is the research depending on amphitheater which was built in last 30 years in Poland. On the left, you see the map of the Poland with the dots and numbers. They are the amphitheaters. And on the right, you see the Odeons. It means the amphitheaters which were covered by the roof. The climate in Poland is relatively hard to all open activities because if the area like amphitheater is not covered, it can exist only from June to end of the August or beginning of September. But when we cover it, we extend this period twice, and we have to use it from April until the end or mid-November, because the temperature are quite good in this time, but it's a lot of raining. And also, especially what is characteristic of Poland, that in the mid of the summer, on the beginning of August, we got also a lot of raining. So if we would like to use the amphitheaters as open space and be sure that we can organize something, we have to cover it. And this is one of the reasons. And the second reason is the money, because during the lot of the time, the Poland got a problem with the economy. But during the last 30 years, after we are transferring our economy to much more efficient model, and we start to be a part of the common Europe, the money comes, and the Poles are using this money, also a part of this money for extending the culture capabilities. And to build the Odeon is the one of the of this value to be a part of the Europe. Here you can see a collection of the amphitheaters and different forms. Follow my research and take a look for free of these Odeons. Because I would evaluate the size of the covering, the structure, how the form was created, and other elements. And finally, we can see collection all of these Odeons which were built in last 10 years in Poland, starting from the smallest one, from 800 spectators, finishing, this is this one on the left corner, finishing down on the right corner with the biggest one, about 6,000 people. So this is the scale of the Odeons. Our Odeons, the second one, is for 1,000 spectators. How you see what is interesting, that the shape of the covering and the forms of this, all of these Odeons are different. We cannot have two similar forms. The ideas are different, the shapes are different, and this is one of the results of the research. But what happened inside such kind of the building is also the part of the study, how you see the concert or well-known artists are main important activities, and sport performance is less important activities. Also, what is interesting, that a lot of this building are built outside the huge cities. It's relatively in the small city where the people cannot use the concert halls, the regular culture building, and this is one of the value that we got. We can come with the culture to the much more and to the much more smaller towns and cities, or in the big towns, in some parts, like in some suburbs of the big towns, it also exists like the extended possibility. If we got, for example, Warsaw, we will see one of the examples from Warsaw. In a moment, the Warsaw got a lot of concert hall because the capital of Poland, but in some area, in some suburbs, it's a lack of such kind of culture building, and for this reason they decided to build amphitheater. I would like to show you, how I said before, two of my design which was done in my office. One is in Biała Podlaska, it's a small town near the eastern border with Poland, very close to the Belarusian border. Polish-Belarusian border is not very famous in news. I don't know how it's here, it's published, but probably you heard something about this, that we got a huge influx of immigrants from the Belarusian side. Anyway, Biała Podlaska is very close to this area. And then the second is in the Warsaw, in the very historical park of the Royal Park, which we call Łazienki. It's King's Bathroom. It's from the 18th century urban scheme from that time. And Biała Podlaska is also interesting because it's a 17th century fortification based on the Dutch or Netherlands concept of the fortification from that time, not so far from the palace in Biała Podlaska, because it was the royal family which also got some palace there. Odeon in Biała Podlaska, here you can see all the team, and we finished this in 2019, so just before the COVID. The palace in Biała Podlaska followed the historical review. It looked like this. I said follow the historical review because today it doesn't exist. Professor Gerard Ciołek, which was died in 1966, was the first professor. He was also the professor in the Cracovia University of Technology, and he got the idea in the 50s, so it's mean less or more 70 years ago, to build an amphitheater there. And the amphitheater in one of the fortification parts looked like this, also followed the historical research. But in the mid-90s, this structure was disappeared, so it's mean it doesn't exist. It's only this picture show how it works. It was relatively small amphitheater from the 50s. And here you can see the whole area, how it exists today, exactly how it exists in the 90s, in the mid of the 90s. Because it shows our first concept, because we won the competition in the mid-90s, so it's a long time ago to prepare and to build amphitheater. And during this competition, we won mostly by using the geometry of this fortification. We can study the geometry, how it looks like, and we decided to build in one of the corner, the left corner, what is marked by red color. It's new intervention into the old structure. The building on the right, marked by the black color, is the support building for the palace, and palace doesn't exist. The palace got the place somewhere here. Palace in before was located in this place. All of this fortification was covered by the green, and it created a park. It was very interesting park, but the greenery there was no design. And what happened in the next year, how you see, it's a lot of greenery here, and also our first concept and our first realization of the amphitheater look like this, comparing to the area. But this area was under protection by the conservator. It's a kind of administration office in each of Polish town, especially in this town which got some historical background, and also in Biała Podlaska is the very strong man, very strong position on the man who take cares about the conservation. And he was open-minded, in my opinion, because a lot of conservation guys are against any new. But he got only one rule for us: we cannot make the structure higher than 3 meters over the old fortification. So it was the reason why we are deciding to do the amphitheater in such a way that we dig something inside to make a proper scale for the amphitheater. Here you see the drawings from the 90s, and some workers, the Polish workers, thinking how to make some waves on the over the stage, because we got some idea to create a wavy roof, and it was a little bit complicated for them to create, but finally they do it, and the amphitheater look in that time like this. How I said, we cannot break the rule 3 meters over the fortification. Here it's very clear to see what we done on the section, because we dig a little bit, and finally we got the difference in between the roof structure and the stage on the level of the distance is about 10 meters high. It was one blue structure. Maybe you are interested what is under this steel structure, because during the construction was stopped for 2 years, because we, in one moment, we found old walls, and the old walls followed the imagination of the construction office in that time. They think that they are first building in Biała Podlaska, and for this reason they would like to show this building and stop construction, make a new documentation, and we agree to cover it by the steel structure, and you can take a look under to see what happened with this wall structure, but it was not very good for the stage, because the stage was divided by the extra element which was not in the first concept. But finally, 4 years ago, they decided to cover the amphitheater, and they call us to do it. So we are preparing 3 schemes how we can imagine that the covering has to look like, and what kind of the structure we can use, and finally we start to create the Odeon. Odeon, the beginning was the removing all the spectators area and cleaning it, and choosing one of the concepts which you can see it here. Again, we are not changing a shape. I mean, we are not changing the shape of the and the section and the deepness. We also would like to stay with the level of 3 meters, not crossing the level of 3 meters over the old structure and the primary design. But the problem, if we are designing this building in such a flat structure, relatively flat structure, was how to solve the problem with the water. Yes, and for this reason we make a lot of models and finally decided to do in the shape of how you see here, because in that way, in relatively flat, we can take the water out. So the idea was to fold the structure and use 2 geometry for folding. One is the semicircle, and the second is less or more rectangular. And what we have done, how looks the addition, how looks the Odeon creation on the base on the amphitheater? It's a 3 steps showing here. First, we got the existing structure, because the existing structure, especially this beam, was not enough strange, so we add some construction element there. Then we made the circular, transparent steel construction, and finally we cover it by the semi-transparent membrane, first, second, and the third. So the drawing from the stage of the construction draws, and again the structural analysis, how looks the strange of the materials, because the membrane is also the part of the structural system, is not the covering material. So it's important during this evaluation. So some details of this analyzing, which I found also interesting from the aspect of the aesthetical aspect of this design. But not only the construction was the problem during such kind of design, but also the voice preparation, especially if you like to use like the part of the concert hall. And for this reason, we make some detailed research how we can improve the quality of the voice propagation. Here you can see some analysis, and all of this which is marked blue and green means good, and is, how you see, is only some parts, especially on the end of the circle, which mark red, which means that there is not the best sound propagation, but it's relatively reduced. So the shape of the roof first was important for the reason of the water, but secondly it was important from the sound preparation, and this folding gives us a very good sound preparation. It was the final design and look like this. But in parallel time, the city also decided to make some improvement of the park. And if you remember, a couple minutes ago I showed you the park, which was and this area which was covered with full of trees, and they decided to remove some of these trees and make some composition like you can see on this picture. And again, there's the slide from the movie. The movie was done during our last visit before the execution of the design, and here you can see how today looks this old structure and its improvement as well in the greenery design, as well in some elements like a conversion Odeon into amphitheater into the Odeon. Some pictures how it look like today, and what I like to express that it's very tiny structure. It's also very strong structure because we can walk on it and also clean it. This man which is standing over the roof show us one of this one of this possibility that we can walk on it. Another interesting and a little bit unexpected by us effect was that some leaves during the some part of the year lie over the structure, and it take another shape, another view, another effects. And also the strangeness of the structure give us not exactly the straight line, but the line which is a little bit curvy. Here you can see just before finalization. Also, I stop in this moment because how you see again today doesn't exist this steel structure covering the old walls. And what is interesting that during the less or more 15 years between opening of the amphitheater and opening of the Odeon, the conservation concept of these walls changed, because they discovered that it wasn't the first building in Biała Podlaska, it was the relatively not important building, and for this reason they decided to remove it and only leave some sign that such kind of structure exists here before. Again, the leaves, which you can see, some lights and some relation in between old structure, the old library, which was located in the tower in behind, and the amphitheater. What was interesting and what you can see here, that the people sitting with the mask, because it was done, this picture was done during the last summer, that this structure start to be lived, and they start to get some classical music concert, and I was very happy that it's not only the structure to take a look, but it's also the structure which works and lives. The second example is not this is the Odeon which wasn't built, and is located in Royal Park in Łazienki, in this very famous and very beautiful part of the Warsaw, and is a summer residence of the Polish kings. And what you see now is a King's Palace, which we call Palace on the Water, because in the front and in the back we got the water pond, and it was done in the end of 18th century, just before Poland lost independence, because during the 19th century Poland doesn't exist on the map of the world states. But one of our last king was very interesting in the culture, and for this reason he decided to build this palace, but not only palace, but also the park, and also inside the park he decided to build the amphitheater. And this is the oldest Polish amphitheater, which come from the 18th century. And this is an artificial thing also. And a year ago it was the competition, two-stage competition to prepare a temporary covering of this existing 18th century amphitheater. So we take a first place in the first stage, and then the first place also in the second stage, and I would like to show you what we do, and also explain why it wasn't be realized after the discussion of the jury. So the rules of the competition work so that we cannot build something which is for a ready-made structure which still exists. So it has to be a structure which we can remove. And for this reason, they expect that the intervention into the existing and very valuable park and very valuable amphitheater will be minimal as possible. And our concept based on movable structure, which got only two pillows. The one pillow in the back of the spectators area, and the second pillow in the back of the stage. And here you can see the concept in the position which is not open. Then you can open in many variants. It means that you can open over the stage, like on the right picture, or you can open only over the spectators area, or you can open both. So it's a movable structure depending on the needs of the how you decided to use. And we got only one pillow over, but how you see the structure under is relatively big because it's a huge construction element, and it's a lot of pressure from the water, from the wind, and from the other factors we have to resist. And for this reason, what you see under the ground is a relatively huge structure, but over the ground is relatively small. And how it's work comparing to the existing, here you can see some pictures because it was the movable element based on this column, and all of this was over existing structure, how the section and the elevation shows. I hope that maybe it's clear to see. And here we can see some elements, some renderings, how we imagine that it will be working. How you see the concept is very symmetrical. And some others pictures look like this. What was also interesting, and maybe I'm not said this before, that the spectators area was over the islands. Not spectators, by the stage area was over the islands, so also one of these pillows was located under the water. And again, this concept from another point of view. And here, after the first stage, the jury got some remarks, and one of the remarks was that that they wasn't happy that one of the pillows is on the back of the stage. So in the second level, on the second stage of this competition, we decided to move it a little bit to the right and make the asymmetrical composition. This is one factor. And the second question after the jury review was what happened with all of these elements when they are dismantled. And you can see on the right side some images of the boats, yes, because we got the idea to take it out and then putting into the boat, so the boat will be like a storage. So it is another concept from the second stage. And again, you can see how it look like our second stage entry. We also make these pillows a little bit much more visual, but it means there is not the solid structure, but this is the structure made from many elements to be much more transparent. And finally, images, how it can works. And this is the last picture which I would like to show you. Coming to the back, this to finalize something. This design wasn't be built because finally under the competition, it was the huge public discussion, and the people decided to, and the people are talking that this intervention is too strong, comparing to the historical value of this area, and they not decided to build. I'm not happy for that, but sometimes it happens. Thank you very much. Yes, absolutely. Yes, okay. Mm-hmm. So, first of all, it's the question in between the first amphitheater concept and the final concept of the Odeon, yes, because this beam we can call, and it exists in the first concept like a very light structure, which was and we call the light bridge, and it was also the light going up and going down, and it was only one line in all of this park. But finally, the rules how to convert it it was works that we have to leave it. And when we decided to leave it, there's some consequences of this is what you mentioned. So it's maybe not the perfect, but maybe you remember our discussion a couple of years ago about imperfection, yes, or imperfect architects. So I think that it's in many cases we are making decisions which are not the perfect decision. Yes, so we can leave something sometimes because we cannot remove it. It's also I'm not happy that there's old walls exist there, yes, on the ground, because I prefer the clean structure. But here what is interesting, I mean, because it generally there's a question how has to look the contemporary concert halls, because we got many concepts, but generally there are two. The one is the box, like here, then we got the straight relation in between spectators and the people who perform, like me. But if you would like to go somewhere and break this distance, it's a problem. But I think in this design, this distance is broken because it's surrounding by the people. It's also coming back to the very classical idea of amphitheater when we got the circular spectators area. But this rules against this straight line and this structure show us that we are in the old fortification, yes, because I choose this axis, yes, it was my choice, and this choice was from the first design done 25 years ago, and until today exists. So I don't like to say there is a perfect, but it works.
About the second project.
Oh, okay.
I understood was a competition.
Yes, it was competition, yes.
And you have the problem with your project. It looks very interesting, but it seems it was a strong structure, something like this.
Yes, it was structured because this hanging is less or more 25 meters, and it was the circular shape, less or more, because it's also circular, and on the different division, because if we put one on the other, we need some place, and for this reason it was the big deepness of the structure.
And how was the first prize?
No, it was the first prize. It was the first prize, because on the I don't show you because on the first stage it was two similar. We and the second, I haven't this concept, but then on the second stage we got the first prize. So it was it was the first prize concept. But as you know, I don't know how it's working in Chile. Maybe different, but sometimes in Poland the competition is the opening of discussion, is not the final result. Yes, so it's maybe it depends on the rules, but here it was the concept competition, and follow this they have maybe they enter or not to enter. It's questionable things, but this is one of the most, especially you have to understand, we talk a lot during the lunch about the Poland history, but you have to understand the differences in between Warsaw and Poland and Cracovia, for example, because Warsaw was destroyed during the Second War, and this area wasn't destroyed. So it's very valuable area, and for this reason, any intervention in this area, it's I don't like to say forbidden, but very hard to do it. A little bit different is in Krakow, because Krakow wasn't destroyed, and for this reason the intervention has to be much more open. But but what you saw in the first example in Biała Podlaska, this intervention is very strong in the historical environment. But the conservation department agree. So for me it's a value. But this conservation department in Warsaw doesn't agree to the result of the competition. So I can't doing more. But also I got a couple days ago the lecture for the Polish students, showing them one of the very good Polish architects example of his works, which called Optułowicz, and he prepared a pavilion for the expo in Hanover in 220. And what was interesting, that the idea of this pavilion comes from the theater which he designed before in Krakow, and he cannot realize this in Krakow, but then with similar concept he entered into the competition to Hanover pavilion, and he built it. So I think that sometimes if we think something for one place, we can use it for the other place, because it exists in our mind. Yes, it's one of the idea.
Okay, and about the second project.
Yes, I'm going
the drawings. This drawing in black and white.
Black and white.
What is the techniques? It's very beautiful.
I know they are beautiful, but to tell you the truth, I have to ask my son, who is also my partner in the office. So it's not my way. So as usual, the architecture works. It's
but there is another one
you
about the views.
I think from the second stage. Yes.
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 Before.
I think this maybe the last one is.
This one.
It's like a graphic. So I think that it's not against the value of this area. So, how I said, I'm not happy, but I have to agree.
It's about the use of. It's a twofold question. One part is that about the heritage protection institutionality or institution or procedures in Poland. I understood that from your talk that this second project was in a way upheld or basically rejected by the public. Does the public have the chance to vote or something to
not
intervene?
Not
is the authority?
Not. It's a little bit like with Paso de Movilidad. Yes. It means that there is a very bureaucracy situation, and it's a power in one hands. because the strength of the conservator is like the strength of the king. Because if he decided to do something, you have to do it. So if he said 3 meters, I cannot discuss. So if we are talking, for example, if we create a much more interesting space comparing to the shape of the amphitheaters, yes, or the Odeons, because this is the flattest which exists, ours. But it was not my concept, it was the concept of it was, in many cases we got the borders, so if we evaluate something, we have to know the limits. If we got no limits, it's not the architecture. But for other hands, if we are working with the students, if you say do something, it's very hard to do something because the borders the limits are also important. So it's a play in between. But anyway, we got very strong conservation offices in every department of the city department, and they and also the rules are sometimes described in the urban plan. So you have to agree that something is like this or something is like this. And I think that especially here it's correct. But sometimes if you design the small house, you got the same rules, and there is a little bit, in my opinion, over bureaucracy. It's too much. Bureaucracy, but comparing, I don't know, Paris or London, yes, you got a lot of modern intervention inside, and you cannot find similar situation in Poland. So we got the conservative and the point of view, and also the conservative office, it's come together. Sometimes you have to wait. I'm joking about this Paso de Movilidad, but you have to wait also for the decision very long, and nothing happened. It's not the process very transparent, because you ask about what people believe and the people what they are thinking and so on. The people, I think that the people don't thinking about this, yes, too much. Because sometimes also the newspapers write and shaping the opinion, yes, or create on tailoring opinion about this. But mostly in Poland, when the newspapers write about the architecture, they write about that somebody stole something or somebody destroyed something or there's a catastrophe. They are not writing about the good or bad things or the ideas or the qualities or something like this. So it's very low aspect. But I'm not sure it's only the Polish problem. I think it's in the problem in general, because today, every day, if you open architecture magazines, you see that somebody is the best, and another day is the 10 best, and another best is the top of the top of the other top, and this is blah blah blah. It's nothing. Yes, it's.
Well, my second question is very specific. It's about, well, both projects have make use of lightweight membrane structures.
Membrane structures, yes.
And I wonder if that kind of structures are included in the building regulations in Poland, because here, not so much. So sometimes a lightweight structure can be built without a full permit, and I understand maybe in Poland it's not so you can
follow my experience with such kind of materials. It's a very specific material, especially in the construction and construction way, and there is a kind of engineering knowledge which is not popular. For example, when I discuss with the students, do something like this, or they can't, they haven't any good examples, yes, because if you design something from concrete, yes, the concrete is the material which is very well known, and here we are. The producers of the membrane in the world, it's seven producers. It's a very monopolized market. And also the understanding of the stringing, or the drawing which I show you, how they calculate the pressure over the membrane. It was also the part of the engineering knowledge. So it's very hard to calculate the price. It's very hard to calculate the engineering, the construction ways, because sometimes they would like to work in such a way that they prepare design, but then they expect that then they will be build this. And mostly they catch money for the building, not for the designing. And finally, if you go, for example, for the website of the company, which membrane we use, they write that this is the company design, not ours. They take our names out, but they didn't know that they go follow our concept. And also it's a complicated thing. And also if we are talking about the building codes, I think it's similar in Poland like in Chile. It's not easy to say that we got some very rules, because all of this structure are unique. If you saw this 9 amphitheater, every got different shape. And when I studied this, all of this construction got some problems, because sometimes was not enough strength of the foundation, in other case another problem. So it's complicated because it's unique. If you do something which is cube, it's simple. Yes, you have to do how we can do. But I got interesting discussion once in Hong Kong with the Foster. We not won, but Foster won, but we got the second prize then. And during the lunch, I asked, and Foster not come to this discussion, only the teams group comes. And I asked them, how you do it? And they said, it's not our problem. We got the engineer for this, engineer for this, engineer for this, engineer for this. So it's quite different system like we are designing in Poland, because we are drawing everything and we are responsible for everything. Yes, if something is wrong, they come to me, not to this company. But Foster, do you remember the Millennium Bridge problems? Yes, the Millennium Bridge got some vibration, but the Foster got no problem with this. He designed, but it was the problem of construction company. And after the 1 year, they found the solution how to break this problem. Yes. But anyway, so. But I think this is very interesting material, because he give us a lot of flexibility, and this is why we are using this. Thank you. And I hope that you come to Poland to welcome Poland.